Another thing, what I still use to this day is listening better. And listening gives you an idea of being more calm because you're into what someone is saying.
This is the Viva View, the podcast that redefines mental health. Every month, we will be destigmatizing mental health with the help of an inspiring guest. Our goal is to empower you in your mental well-being. So let's begin. Welcome to the Viva View. I'm your host, Dr. Julie Lopez, speaker, author, and the founder of the Viva Center. On this week's episode, we're going to be diving into the collection of experiences that most of us call anxiety and a different way of understanding it. I want you to stay till the end where I'm going to talk about this 5-part methodology to stay out of the stigma trap that we all fall victim to in today's society. I want to welcome Colin Drummond, who is a leader in the media space. He's an entrepreneur and the founder of 10G, where he works with other entrepreneurs to develop content. So he's no stranger to the importance of language. He's the former bureau chief for TMZ, and obviously he knows how very much words really matter. I personally experienced Colin as a brave and steady protector, and this really matters in today's topic. Before we jump in, don't forget to check out our website, www.vivapartnership.com, for free and low-cost resources that will empower you in your healing journey. Thank you so much for joining us today, Colin.
It's my pleasure, and thank you for having me, Julie. I'm excited to be here and ready.
Awesome. So my first question is, I just want to know, in the role that you're in as a leader, as an entrepreneur, how have you seen anxiety around you?
I see it in a lot of different angles and the way people interact with, like, whether it's strangers or people they know. And I first looked at anxiety as something where, like, if it came to a part where I had to get prepared for something and I was all over the place, and then I started seeing, like, when you calm down, I didn't get so much of that anxiety. And then I would see it with other people when it was at a time when, let's just say, being on set and being in the studio, and they were running on a story and they had to meet deadlines. So it would come off where it was like more as pressure versus, like, you can, like look in their eyes and just tell, and you'd be like, okay, how do I calm them down? How do I, get them out of that space? So those are type of forms, like, I would see anxiety in people. Now, I don't even know if that's correct, but that's what would always, like, how I would see it before I knew anything, how to, like, kind of relate to it myself.
I love what you just said. And you even intuitively knew, like, oh man, this person's like all revved up and I need to, like, calm them down. Why did you have to calm them down before they went on set?
Because especially being on camera, so a lot of time you want to get the person in that right state of mind where they're going to be comfortable talking to you, they're going to be comfortable, like, expressing themselves and getting their thoughts out appropriately versus being rushed and, kind of like not nervous, but like they're talking over their words, and it's a lot of ums and things where it wouldn't be their normal procedure of how they operate and talk to a specific person. So, the way you get them, you look at it in a sense of, okay, talk about something different to them. Just get them out of that mindset, like we're getting ready to do a big interview, or you're getting ready to talk to someone about a hard topic that's kind of nerve wracking, and you don't know how to come out with the right angle to get somebody to kind of calm them down. So that's where I would, look at it from that perspective.
Okay, so isn't this interesting? There's a situation, you've just described a few things going on set. You said their nerves are up. Maybe there's a topic that they're going to go into that's a little bit more vulnerable, or that they might feel a little nervous about. And it's going to be a better interview. They're going to perform better when they're really present, relaxed, not stumbling over their words. what I know as an expert in the human system is that we only step into that place of kind of agitation when we perceive that there's some type of danger. And I can make up some stuff and you can add to this, but maybe the danger is I'm going to be recorded and I'm not going to do well. Maybe I'm going to fail. Maybe this has consequences or implications for my career or other bigger things. And they get way, way ahead of themselves, which, by the way, that is anxiety. When we talk about mental health, is defined as a mood where someone's future focused. And usually they're scanning for something that could happen in the future and trying to protect against it. But you knew that them being calm and centered was going to make everything go better. It's such a great example of how this works in the everyday. And what I would say is that when someone's very future focused, what they're actually trying to do is just protect themselves. They're trying to
Right.
think through all the things that could go wrong and be ready for it. And then their system gets overwhelmed. They're scanning the environment to look for danger and make sure they're safe. This is a natural biological drive. But when we say stuff, and there's other words, by the way, I'm sure you've heard all of these: panic, phobia,
Oh,
paranoia. These are
yes.
different levels, but they all fall under anxiety. And it gives us kind of a different thought about the person who's dealing with it. And I wonder if you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, I always think about it. And one word I didn't hear you use, but I'm sure you use it a lot, is when someone like they don't think they belong there. They're not at that part right there. So it's
Like
almost is
imposter syndrome.
imposter syndrome, yeah. And it's almost to the point of I don't want to do this interview because I'm not at this space now, and they're making a big deal of me, and I don't really realize how big of a person I am. So, getting them to even, that self belief to where, no, you're really at this level right now. And I'm saying it from like a person that's getting ready to do an interview, but sometimes it's the interviewee as well. And you get like this is like a big, high profile person, and you're getting ready to sit down with them for 15 minutes, or you might have a conversation with them on the street for 5, and it's a short opportunity in that window. And like the office gave you a bunch of questions that you got to nail down, and you're trying to not make it as a like just question after question after question, because a good interview is a time when it's a conversation. So having to calm your nerves down and make it where the other person like gets in the flow with you, as they don't even realize like you're asking questions. So I always can sense that in people, like if they're getting ready to get someone and work on them for a good interview, or if it was they were going to be the person who was going to really be interviewed. And it's interesting hearing how do you cope with those situations to calm them down.
Yeah. And it sounds like that's been a major focus for getting a really good interview,
Oh
both for the
yeah.
interviewee and the interviewer.
hmm Because I always look at it as you're already talented and you're at that level. It's just how do you perform at that moment? And sometimes it can be a golden opportunity. It can be a great clip that can go everywhere and go viral, or it can be your next opportunity, because we always look at it like you're one video away of stardom. And when you have to know, like
No
we talk about,
pressure. No
no
pressure.
pressure, no pressure, no pressure, and especially if you're in a business, I tell people a lot of times words earn money. So how you perform and the questions that you ask, or how you answer certain questions, can take you to a different level as well. You might say that one thing that someone was, just dying to hear when you're speaking to an audience, but you have one individual in front of you, but you're talking to a mass amount of people. And that way, how you like come off in a general setting where it doesn't feel like you're scripted and it's just like off the cuff, because this is more where we're at right now in society. I think people don't like just the scripted things. They want to see the vulnerable person. How did you get to this level? What are your shortcomings? What do you see? How can other people get to where you're at, and they want to hear you tell it to the audience in a way like you're just speaking to one specific person, but it's obtainable and they can achieve it too. If I got to this place in my career where I'm at, it's so easy, but I'm not just being, someone just being sarcastic when I say it's easy, but, make them feel that way. So it's a lot of different ways I see.
That's awesome because you're actually saying that you have these different techniques to help someone be more present,
Yes.
right? Because when they're more present, they're more in the flow of what's going on, as opposed to already pre-planning what's going to happen, which causes a lot more pressure.
Right. Yeah. And I always think it's like when you don't have to prepare for certain things, and I won't say never be prepared, but you get more of, and this is just as when I'm talking about just basically interviews, but I look at interviews as conversations. So if you're going to have a conversation like me and you, Julie, I'm not going to say, hey, before we have a conversation, I'm going to ask you about this. I'm going to ask you about that. I'm just going to start talking to you. And then it comes across on like any person can just relate to both of you conversations, and they're just looking in or listening in, and they can see how it can help them with whatever the topic is. And more important, we always have to figure out like how do I get the most out of how do I pull from that person where they're comfortable enough and they know they're in a lax mode, and they're just speaking about their true self and the direction that they've come and how they got there. And it's just like they don't have to think about it. It just flows off their tongue. It's just like natural. So those, preparing someone from that perspective is always good in my eyes.
That's awesome. Well, one of the things we want to do here on
Hmm.
the Viva View is change the perspective on what it means to be struggling with, and I would say, as we've been talking, the idea that there could be danger, which is spiking anxiety, right? The pressure, the how do I perform well? How do I nail all the questions? How do I make sure I come across well, calm, relaxed when I feel anything but? And a lot of times, what happens with some of these labels, like the things that I listed off, is there's a stigma around them. So I can tell from what you're saying, probably the last thing you're going to say to them is something about their anxiety or something about,
Right.
you're going to try to work with them to feel safe in the moment.
Hmm.
Because in fact, every person who's struggled with some type of anxiety is really scanning for danger within their system, within themselves, with other people, with their environments. And so we're looking at how we can understand that some people come in and they feel really calm, and maybe it's because they've had a lot of training, or maybe they've practiced many times in front of the camera, or maybe they're part of, we were talking earlier today about Toastmasters. They've practiced a
Right.
lot, and so they've
Yeah.
gained some skills that tell them like, okay, on a deeper level, like I'm safe here. It's going to be okay. We'll laugh if I stumble over my words. Like it's okay.
Right.
There's room for all of that. Another way of saying it is, I'm not in danger. So I know from my chair, there are a lot of things that can impact someone feeling in danger when they're not.
Right.
There are these more complicated concepts like trauma that comes from prior generations. We know this through the study of epigenetics or environmental types of transitions, pre-conscious trauma, like things that happen before we can really remember them, prenatal societal influences that make people feel less safe in our culture than other people. And those can be because of race, class, culture, all kinds of different factors. So when we think about how to make someone feel safe who has actually faced a lot of adversity, and they're coming in, and I guess we'll put it in the context of coming on studio or needing to go
Hmm.
live with the camera, what kinds of things do you think help them? And you've already said a few, but like, have you seen be successful in your line of work so that they're really present and calm?
I would say the number one thing for me, what's always worked for me, like I would tell right in the beginning, and this is a story like I tell a lot of people when they're just actually even starting out, or they say, "What's if you can give me a few tips?" I'm like, I will butcher some words in a minute, right? And my grammar and everything about it is I can be wordy too much. I can have word vomit, as they say in the media world. And when you put it out there ahead of time to some people, like if you're great to speak to an audience, you could say, sometimes I may curse or sometimes I get off topic and stuff like. So you give people a heads up so they know what to expect of you. And you're going to say like, people who can't spell and sometimes I'm on the whiteboard and I'm not a great speller, but I know what I'm trying to get at. So people and the audience would laugh sometimes when I spelt something correct. And I think with you explain it, it doesn't make you as much like I got to make everything correct. And once if you mispronounce specific words or something like that, then you get flustered later on, and during your presentation or during your interview, and it just messes up the total. So letting people know ahead of time is one of the best things to be at a space where you can just keep going, and it's no pause into your questioning, or it's like it's already expected. And another thing what I still use to this day is listening better. And listening gives you an idea of being more calm because you're into what someone is saying. You're into the conversation. So it's not, most people will say it's like being focused. It's not really just about being focused. It's like really listening. And when you really start listening to someone's words, you're not just like sitting there and waiting to ask them the next question. And sometimes you get to find out different things, and the more people talk, my favorite word is, when you run out of questions, it's like, just tell me more, go more on the topic. And it's easier to find a next question when someone speaks. So just teaching people like little tips and tricks that can help them calm themselves when they feel like, okay, I'm not getting enough out of this, or I just, try to like I didn't get things have I wasn't prepared enough. This enables you to not just buy time, but it makes you get more information as well.
You know what I love about what you said, Colin? You actually said two really important things.
Mhm.
The first one is that you make yourself more human. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm gonna misspell something, or hey,
Yeah.
I can't curse, or you're like, hey, and that's such a powerful thing. It's like, hey, this is normal. It's okay. It's okay for me to be human. And look, I'm calm. And so then
Yep.
their nervous system is like, okay, he's calm
Mhm.
and he can make mistakes, so I can make mistakes. That is
Right.
amazing. And I promised the listeners a 5-step methodology to staying out of that stigma trap, and you actually just tapped into one of them. And
What's
the
that?
other one, well, I'm going to
Okay.
get to that at the end, but it has to do with normalizing,
Okay.
normalizing the human condition and normalizing how we behave as humans. And the second one was about listening, really proactive listening, to
Yeah.
be really engaged and hear what's going on. To do that well, because you compared that as opposed to like skipping ahead in the questions or thinking I'm going to do
Mhm.
this question or that question. Remember how I said future focused stuff?
Right.
Future focused. Oh my gosh, the lion's coming after me. It's going to eat me. Oh my gosh, I have nowhere to hide. Oh my gosh, what am
Right.
I going to do? And all of a sudden I'm having a panic attack. Or I
Hmm.
am super paranoid. I have to look for lions everywhere. I can't even listen to you talk because I'm looking for, you know, insert whatever as the lion, perfectionism or performance or whatever. And when you listen, like real listening, not just
Yeah.
I'm thinking of my next question, future focus, you're
Hmm.
present, super present. Like, let me be here with you. And nervous system to nervous system, people feel that. That's palpable when you're like really, really listening. So I love that. And it's another part of the 5-step thing, which I'll get to it at the end. So don't go anywhere. Um, so that's really cool. You're kind of a natural guru. I know you're already a marketing guru, and I know you already help people a lot with their content and stuff like that, but you're really looking out for people. in a way. You're
Mhm.
looking out for them to be okay. And you're kind of telling them in these different ways, it's okay to be yourself. It's okay however you show up, mistakes and all, totally good. So I was going to ask you, in your former role as bureau chief for TMZ and now as a marketing guru, I actually saw you were called the marketing god somewhere.
Yeah,
That's a pretty good
media,
title.
media.
Oh, media god? Was it media?
Yeah, media.
Not
Yeah,
marketing.
yeah.
Media. A media god. What does it mean to you to be thinking about either your clients or your audiences and their felt experience when you think about someone being able to be really present or get out of that future focus space that anxiety can create?
That's a good question because I think we all have challenges when it comes to how great we are first. And the one thing I've learned, and this is with working with celebrities and high profile people, I would always, after doing some interviews, I would always talk to either their manager, assistants, or talk to them off camera. And the one thing I've noticed, and all of them have this particular thing, it's like they're bold. And when I mean bold, it's just like they believe like they've gotten to that level, not just on talent alone. And the ones that really excel, they don't depend just on their talent. They know that they have to open their mouth, they have to tell people how talented they are. They're going to do the extra work. They're going to be at a different level. I'll say in my career, the one thing that always sticks to me, and I don't know if I ever told this to you, and this is my LeBron James story. And LeBron James was at the height of his career when he was with Miami Heat, and this was the summer, and it was like 96 degrees outside. So most basketball teams they go and practice in the morning, and have like a shoot around before the game. They take the bus. They were at the Four Seasons Hotel in Georgetown, and then they would go and shoot around for like an hour, and then come back to the hotel, sleep, eat lunch, and then get ready to prepare for the game later on. So that day it was 96 degrees outside. A lot of fans be out there for the bus waiting. And the rest of the team was coming back on a bus, and LeBron James is jogging in this heat, 96 degrees by himself, jogging back to the hotel. It just shows that they go the extra, level of wanting to push more. So when I see those people, when they do those certain things, like it's like I speak to clients and I say, your talent won't just get you there. Your talent will get you as far as a normal person in that industry. To really stand out and become somebody special in what you do, you have to be able to tell people that too. And that's by being bold and saying, I'm really good. And you just not believing in your product or service. Like my stuff is so good. Like I use it myself, or I got to this level doing this X, Y, and Z. And it's not thinking like you're being cocky or arrogant in a way, but you just, more people. I always look at when it comes to branding something, and you see all these different commercials, and just remember, if you go into the majority of times you go into some of these pharmacies, and some of the products are the same, but you look on the back of all the ingredients, might be one or two things that's different, but it's a different price and how they market it. It's because they've put a lot into it because they believe it could sell, and they're going to get that out. So it's just when you feel like, as somebody like I work with, you just have to push from that angle as well. And just not just the self belief, but really, say it to other people too. It's just like that closed mouth won't get the opportunities, is that other people will.
I love that. So it's really a huge, huge influx of, I'm sure you don't say it this way in like media land or marketing land, but it's like a ton of love. It's like, you're awesome. You're great how you are. You can do this. You can go the extra mile. And I
Hmm.
love that. It's really a huge buildup for people with their self-esteem. You were talking about imposter syndrome a little bit, right? That's what you're doing when
Yeah.
you're down for
Yep.
these interviews or helping your clients with their marketing, right? It's not just doing well, it's saying what you're doing and how it's making an impact and how it's different than other people.
Yeah. And another thing, you always gotta, like, you gotta do what you say. If the people that's disciplined, when they say something they're going to do, you actually have to do it. And when you can have that type of discipline, you're going to see more success. And the results actually come from the things that you say you're going to do because you know it's going to impact something that you're trying to strive to, that goal of getting.
I love that. And so kind of bringing it back to the idea of anxiety, it ends up really getting in the way of someone's focused on future stuff or danger stuff that they can't be present or be connected in with what they have to offer, right? And some of those future thoughts can be like, well, what if people don't think it's what I'm saying is that great? Or what if people start to, you know, poke holes in what I'm offering? And I think you even told me once that the more visible you get, the more likely people are to be that way or to
Yeah,
have to hear people who are critics and that type of
yeah,
thing.
it comes with the territory. Like when you're on a level where people are talking about, your, whatever is your creativity, the knowledge, your skill set on in your industry, they're talking about you for a reason. Because if you didn't matter, they wouldn't talk about you. They wouldn't have anything to say because most people don't punch down. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
They're trying to punch up and they're trying to bring you back down where they're at. So you start looking at, okay, I'm getting somewhere because now they're kind of trying to discredit me, but I'm not going to let that get to me. I'm not even going to feed into that type of energy because I know where I'm going. I know that level what I'm pushing for. That's just giving me more fuel now to keep doing what I'm doing and actually putting more gas to it.
I love it. So when I said at the beginning that I experience you as a protector, that's so great. I mean, that is it, right? It's like, and I
Yeah.
love that quote. I hadn't heard that quote before. Most people don't punch down, right? If you're doing something that's really visible or you're putting yourself out there, you're really being yourself, you're not really going to draw criticism unless you're doing something great. And so I love what that means in terms of really building someone up and helping them have kind of this shield of safety around them. So,
Yeah.
um, so you said a bunch of great things, and I love how it goes right into what you do professionally with 10G in terms of helping people really put themselves out there in a way. You're probably doing this kind of coaching all the time. Do you have
Yeah.
do you have kind of a recent story of someone who was nervous about putting something out there or who was kind of playing small when they had something great to offer?
Yeah. I had a client, and the thing about it, he's actually like really, really, really smart. Network is good. He knows the industry inside out, and he's actually a marketer himself. But he would teach people, but he wasn't building his brand up. And he wanted more of visibility because it was going to help him, I guess, get more clients and also serve people in the right way because he did know the things, but he wouldn't. I guess he didn't want to put out content. It's just so it's almost. And I say this, I people always ask me early on, why is it that you don't see a lot of the big celebrities? They weren't putting out content, and I would say the reason early on a lot of the celebrities, I'm talking about A-listers, like they wouldn't put it out because they didn't want to start out on Instagram and Twitter and YouTube with a low account because they're already known as somebody big. So it would make them look small if they only had, 50 likes and they weren't getting any comments where, no name people in that same thing were getting millions of views and stuff like that. So they had a credibility issue. So they feel like they wasn't taking them. So, and it's the same way he felt. And I explained it to him because I told him that story about how we look at it in Hollywood and how it changed because now most actors and actresses, it's a point system when they're getting these deals now because the studios, they realize like if I'm paying an A-list actor or actress 12 million a movie, but we have a budget. We have to put 14, 20 million in marketing, and they don't have any outside people where they can just go and post something, and we can get that big audience where I can go and get an influencer who has a huge following, and they can go and post something. We don't have to market that much. So they started doing a scale. So now a lot of them are realizing, hey, we have to get engagement. We have to get discovered online as well. It's okay that our careers and we're A-listers, but you still have to have a social media presence. So, and I was explaining to him, this is going to help you serve more people by you starting to put out content as well, and you being able to show people. And just because you know how to do it, but you're not doing it, and you're not getting the results, and you're not seeing the failures like the rest of them, this is only going to make you better. And then he started really posting, and he was on his YouTube. This YouTube was always hard to get subscribers, and then I just start telling your story. And now he's gotten a huge audience, and he sells more now because on YouTube, just remember, you don't have to have a lot of followers or subscribers on there. It's going to be a niche market that's going to like you for what you do. If I'm someone and all I do is talk about Invisalign, and I'm an expert on Invisalign, I tell you when to drink your coffee before you with it on or off, or how you do all these things with Invisalign, how you make it where it doesn't hurt your teeth at night when you put it back in. And I could just tell you. So now, if I'm looking for a group of people who are about to buy Invisalign, they're going to listen to my channel. They're going to find out all the tips behind it. Then I'm going to have a lot of the dentists who are selling Invisalign. They're going to come to my channel because they know I have an audience who are listening. So this is what you can have, that niche market, and this is where sales come in. So he started realizing that, and then started working good for him. And he believes more in doing the content now. And it's become a lot easier as he's building out a library of good content, up and down. So that's something I can say has really helped him.
It's that same thing about vulnerability and really being
Yeah.
present. I love
Yeah.
it. And you're doing such a great service with that. I laughed because that was a conversation we had earlier about Invisalign and coffee. Very funny. Yeah, it's day one on one of my trays, so it's not staying with coffee. Anyway, without further ado, first of all, I want to share with you what I promised, which is the 5-part methodology to stay out of that stigma trap. I said a lot of trouble in our world today is that mental health terms come with a stigma. So you say, I'm super anxious or I'm paranoid. It conjures up the idea that you're crazy when you're actually not. There's usually a cause behind it. So it's a 5-part methodology, and the words, the letters that go in front of each step spell out pride. So it's like going from stigma to having pride in how you are and what's going on. So in this case, for anxiety, we know that when people are feeling anxious, they're just scanning for the future to stay safe. They're really doing something to protect themselves, which actually in our human nature is adaptive. It is adaptive. Since I used lions earlier, I'll say if a lion's coming after you, the best thing you can do is figure out, am I going to run? Am I going to fight? Am I going to hide? You better be thinking, because that's what's going to help you survive. So the P is first, prepare. So understanding that there are normal responses to distressing things, like you're fine, you're human, it's normal. Whatever reactions you have are coming from something. We just don't know what that something might be. And here's Colin, who's the genius at getting people to like calm down and be present. The second thing is the R. So R stands for recognize. So we're recognizing that there are invisible factors that might make people not feel safe. Use the example of the perfectionist. So someone who's trying to do it all right because they're conducting an interview, or they're on an interview, or it's a big audience. And you do this great thing of just saying, hey, it's okay. I'm human. I'll make a mistake. You can make a mistake. So it's the idea of recognizing that there are a whole bunch of things that could impact that. There could be things in that person's history. There could be things that you're signaling or that they're signaling because of who you are that make them feel unsafe and automatically make them scan. The third one is inquiry. So it's not saying, I mean, the last thing you would want to say is, what's wrong with you, dude? You got to calm down. Oh my gosh, that's just going to make them go more and more
Yeah.
anxious. Better
Yeah.
question would be something like, what happened to you? Like, I know that this is a normal reaction to something, but you're safe here right now. It's not about like what's wrong with you. It's like really more about what's your story. Oh, I'm so nervous that I'm going to make a mistake. It's okay, man. I sometimes spell stuff wrong, right? It's like a
Yeah.
way of calming things down. The fourth one is D, which stands for deep respect, because when someone goes through hard stuff or someone has had to scan for danger or feel protected, we know that life isn't perfect and people go through hard things. So it's like holding them in respect as a human being who's doing their best. And the last one is E, which is stands for exalt, and recognize that whoever that is in their hero story. If someone's scanning for the future, we want to like give them the props for being in that position and even being adaptive to think about what could harm them in the future. Being like, it's okay, I get it. This is high stakes.
Right.
And you are so courageous just for being here. You can be human, you can be normal, and it takes people's anxiety way down. And it's a more adaptive way of thinking about the situation. Because when we start getting into words that are blaming or shaming, it just ramps up the problem. And we're trying to change the world from that type of narrative. So I just want to thank you, Colin, for being here with us today. You were awesome. You certainly opened my eyes to a bunch of things. I love your storytelling. It's so great. And your cool examples from your world of media and marketing and all the things. I will also want to thank the listeners for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed our deep
Yes.
dive into the role of what is called anxiety, but should be called our attuned protective side to protect ourselves. Be sure to check out 10G, Colin's company, and all the great work Colin is involved in to get important messages out there. Maybe your
Hmm.
message, maybe your company's message. He is awesome and great to work with. And be sure to join us next month when we'll be talking about some common misconceptions about relationship struggles. As always, visit www.vivapartnership.com to access our free and low-cost resources that will empower you on your healing journey. And if you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help us redefine mental health, I'd like to invite you to share, subscribe, and consider leaving a rating and a review. Let's redefine mental health together and end the stigma that surrounds it. Thank you again,
Yes.
Colin.
Thank you. And make sure y'all share this and subscribe and keep following. Look at all the other content that Julie has as well.
Oh, thank you, Colin. Thanks for being a guest here on the Viva
No
View.
problem. Thank you for having me.